Welcome to Season 2 of 3rd and 21. 3rd and 21, we do two things. We talk about college football, try to have a little bit of fun. Talk about college football, try to have a little fun. But before we get started, I want to send out three thank yous. One, I want to thank you for watching. Time is our most valuable commodity, and I'll try not to waste any of yours. Second, I want to thank American Health Imaging and Maxie Holmes for making this dream come alive and become a reality. And third, I want to thank Bass Behind the Glass Production. Bass Behind the Glass Productions, who's taken over the productions of this, making my job a ton easier. So Bass Behind the Glass Production is really helping us out here. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down all 5 power conferences. We're going to start with the big rough and tumble Big Ten. And then we're going to go through each other conferences each week as time goes on. So the Big Ten, let's look back on what the Big Ten did last year. Last year they were 7-1. The Big Ten was 7-1 in their bowl games, capped off by Ohio State absolutely slaughtering Southern California. Equally as impressive, Wisconsin manhandled Miami, and all the way down Northwestern beat up on Kentucky. Across the board, very impressive for the Big Ten. If you look at the Big Ten over the last 5 years, they have improved drastically. The coaching has improved. They've got a lot of good young coaches, and the depth has improved. When we break down each team, you're going to hear a massive number of returning starters this year. It's going to be a very experienced league, and one I'm excited to get doing. So let's break this thing down.
Welcome to 3rd and 21, a show where we talk about college football and try to have a little fun. Where we talk about college football and try to have a little fun. Now back to you, Kemper.
All right. So let's go ahead and break down the Big Ten West. We'll start from bottom to top. When we talk about the bottom, it looks like it is the University of Illinois. Lovie Smith is their coach. The reason I say bring him up is he has 2 NFL head coaching jobs. You don't get those jobs if you don't know how to coach. So Lovie Smith is a good coach. Last year, he went with a total breakdown and started 16 of the 22 starting positions were true freshmen. That can pay some dividends next year or year after, but this year is not looking good for Illinois, and I don't see them being favored in any conference game. If it wasn't for the University of Kansas, we might be looking at the worst Power 5 football team in the country. So that takes us to Purdue. Purdue is the owner of the world's largest drum, and that's pretty cool. You know what else is pretty cool? Purdue won 7 games last year. They did win their bowl game. The reason that's impressive is Purdue won 8 games in the prior 3 years before last year. So Jeff Brom's got it going in the right direction. They've got 9 offensive starters coming back. Pretty cool thing about their schedule. They get Missouri at home. They went to Missouri last year and really slaughtered them. So Missouri's going to come to West Lafayette and play. They also scheduled Boston College. So I give a thumbs up on teams that go outside their conference and schedule quality opponents. Good job, Boilermakers. Next up is Minnesota. Minnesota's 5-7 last year and missed a bowl game. PJ Fleck is the coach, excellent coach. He's got 7 offensive and 7 defensive starters. Interesting thing, every single one of my computer models has Minnesota going to a bowl game this year. Next up is Nebraska. Now, if Nebraska was a stock, I would buy it. Not necessarily for what they're going to do this year, but Scott Frost is their coach, and he's going to bring a fast and physical brand back to Lincoln. And I really see things pointing up for Nebraska. Pretty cool thing about their schedule is they play Colorado from the Southwestern Conference days, Big 12 days, and that was a pretty nasty rivalry. Nebraska versus Colorado, keep your eye on that on September 8th. All right, next is Northwestern, and the only reason I have Northwestern here is their schedule. They have a very, very difficult schedule, but Northwestern has established themselves in the pecking order of the Big Ten. They won 10 games last year. They've won 10 games 2 of the last 3 years. So they've really established themselves as a very tough out. They won their bowl game against Kentucky in the Music City Bowl. Their quarterback, Thorson, is excellent, 6'5", 230. He blew his knee out in the win against Kentucky, and really their season is going to hinge on how he comes back. But they do play Duke, who's better than what you think, and they play Notre Dame as out of conference. So good job for Northwestern, and they're going to be a very tough out. Old Iowa. Kirk Ferentz is in his 20th year at Iowa. And Iowa is a team, they are tough to play at home. The reason I say that, last year, if you remember, Ohio State went in, Iowa beat them at night, at home. Year before, Penn State was ranked number 5, came to Iowa, lost. September 22nd, Wisconsin comes to Iowa. They've already scheduled a night game. If Iowa can beat Wisconsin on September 22nd, they have a path where you could see Iowa as the Big Ten West champion. But the odds-on favorite and a legitimate playoff contender is the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin has 10 offensive starters coming back. Their entire offensive line, their quarterback, Hornibrook, is a legitimate thrower, and they've got a stallion of a running back, John Taylor. Their defense is very young, but the linebackers are very good, and I believe the offense is going to carry the team to where the defense can grow into it. So Wisconsin, a legitimate division champion and playoff contender. So that's kind of how the West breaks down. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we will get to the toughest division in college football. That's the Big Ten East.
Need an MRI or a CT scan like this. You can spend thousands at a hospital or visit American Health Imaging and spend a fraction of that. We have registered technologists like Tina. Genius. Unlike hospitals, we'll have you in, out, and results to your doctor in a flash. Same day appointment, no problem. American Health Imaging. Your health, your money, your choice.
American Health Imaging, it is your health. It's your money. It's your choice. And that is awesome. You know what else is awesome? The Big Ten East. We've got 4 legitimate playoff teams coming from one division. That's more than any other division in college football. Big Ten East. So let's start at the bottom. Rutgers comes in at the bottom. Chris Ash, in his 3rd year, will have an improved team. But listen to this November. This is how they finish their year. They go to Wisconsin. They get Michigan and Penn State at home. Then they go to Michigan State. That sounds like 0-4 to me. Now they do play against Kansas the September 15th. That's a game we might watch for all the wrong reasons. So let's move it over to Indiana. Indiana likes to score a lot of points, and they're going to need to. Their entire offensive line comes back, and that is a huge plus because their defense is going to be very young. For any chance at a bowl, Indiana has to start out 3-0. They play Florida International, Virginia, and Ball State. For any chance at a bowl, they got to go 3-0 there. But one of my computer models has Indiana winning 7 games this year. We'll see. Okay, next up is our friends from Maryland. Interesting, Maryland has a new offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, who was the hottest coaching name last year. He goes to Maryland to try to shake some things up there. Maryland starts their year off bringing Texas to Maryland. Now, if you remember last year, they went to Austin and beat Texas 51-41. So I don't think Texas forgot about that, but that's a game to watch in the first first week. Texas versus Maryland. And Maryland, more than any other school, has bad luck with getting quarterbacks hurt. Last year, again, their first string and second string quarterbacks got hurt. So if they can keep a quarterback all season, who knows what they can do. So let's take it in. We start up Murderer's Row. I've got Penn State right here. James Franklin's coming into his 5th year. It's really brought a lot of stability to the program. They went 11-2 last year, but Saquon Barkley is gone, and they really, really leaned on Saquon Barkley a lot for their offensive production. They're also going to miss Joe Moorhead, the offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach at Mississippi State. Their offensive line is going to be huge. I think it's going to be a great thing. Cool thing. I'm going to do a deal. It's called Games That Need to Be Played Every Year. Penn State is playing Pitt, and that qualifies for my games that need to be played every year. Penn State versus Pitt. All right, let's move it to Michigan State. Mark D'Antonio is coming into his 12th year. They have 19 returning starters off a team that went 10-3. The schedule sets up very nicely for them. They don't play Wisconsin out of the East or out of the West. They have Ohio State and Michigan at home, and then they go on the road to play Penn State. Cool game. Out of conference, a cool game. They play Arizona State at Arizona State in the second week of the year. So keep your eyes open for that. I would say that Michigan State's going to be favored in that game. Next up, the Michigan Wolverines. And they have 17 starters returning. They went 8-5 last year, faded down the stretch, but they got zero production out of their quarterbacks. That won't be the case this year, as Shea Burdett Patterson comes in to play quarterback for Michigan, and he is a fantastic player. The thing is, their schedule is extremely difficult. I just talked about games that need to be played every year. They open at Notre Dame. It's going to be outstanding. But that's a game that needs, Michigan versus Notre Dame needs to be played every year. They go at Michigan State, at Ohio State. They get Wisconsin and Penn State at their house. Man, that is a difficult schedule. But they're loaded at every position group. They're going to get production from every single position group. Jim Harbaugh's best team by far. But the team on top is Ohio State. Listen, they lose J.T. Barrett, the 3-time Big Ten Player of the Year, the guy who owns 35 Big Ten offensive records. Most teams, most schools, when you lose a player like that, would take a step back. Not Ohio State. Ohio State is going to be just fine with Haskins coming in, who's actually a better passer. Ohio State is loaded in every single position group and are not only a Big Ten contender, but a playoff and national title contender. Super cool game to keep your eye on is going to be September 15th against TCU. That could be a preview of 2 conference champions in the 3rd week of the season. So keep your eye on that. But Urban Meyer and Ohio State, legitimate national championship contenders. Tell you what, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll do the ever popular mailbag segment and put your money where your mouth is. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back to 3rd and 21. We do 2 things. We talk about college football, try to have a little fun. Talk about college football, try to have a little bit of fun. So we're going to go to the ever popular mailbag segment, and this is a question where you can write in, you can ask me anything about college football. I'll do my level best to give you a clear and concise answer. We're going to do something a little bit different. on these. We're going to have people calling in the question as we speak. So first question.
All right. Phil from Oshkosh asks, do you think Big Ten is the best conference this year?
Do I think the Big Ten is the best conference this year? I think the Big Ten is very competitive. I think the Big Ten has more teams that have a legitimate shot at making the playoffs. Is it the best conference? It depends on how you break best down, but I'll tell you this. No other conference has more teams that could legitimately make the playoffs. So that's how I answer that question. Next question.
All right. Darren from Fort Wayne asks, do you think the Big Ten can get 2 teams to the playoffs?
Do I think the Big Ten can get 2 teams into the play? There would have to be some crazy things happening. I don't see a scenario. I think there's 2 teams there's 5 teams that are good enough to get into playoffs, but I do not see a scenario of 2 Big Ten teams getting into the playoffs. Next question.
Last but not least, Daniel from Des Moines asks, which Big Ten team has the best uniform?
Which team has the best uniforms? I'll tell you this, I like Indiana's helmets. I think Indiana has great helmets. Best uniform, Ohio State, Michigan, both classic. You know what, I like Penn State. I like Penn State's uniforms. It's, very classic. I like Penn State's uniforms, but all of them, I guess, are pretty good uniforms. But Penn State, I'll go with Penn State. So tell you what, we'll put the wrap on the mailbag and go to the Maxey Homes. Put your money where your mouth is. And this is where I have to make a prediction. Last year, if you remember, we were 6-3 off the against the spread last year. But what I will do is say that I believe 9 Big Ten teams will make bowl games. 9 Big Ten teams will make bowl games this year. That's your Maxey Homes, long on quality, short on drama. Put your money where your mouth is. Tell you what, we're going to put a bow on it. We're going to come back next week. We're going to break down the Pacific Athletic Conference, and we are looking forward to it. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week.